What's up, everybody? My name is Danger Doug, and thank you so much for watching this episode. We are going to be taking a look at one of my favorite series of all time, Danganronpa. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about Danganronpa 3, The End of Hope's Peak Academy High School, and we're going to be taking a look at exactly where does it fit within the universe, and we're going to be kind of like going over the different arcs that are associated with this anime, and giving you guys a little bit of a lowdown as to what it's all about. Now, if you're a longtime Danganronpa fan like myself, who's already played the first two games here and there and have kind of a context to what the universe is all about, you're that excited friend over here who's inviting so-and-so over to your house, and this person has like no clue as to what's going on in the anime, so it's like, okay, if I'm somebody who's just watching it for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, I see that you're really excited. Yeah, this is awesome. I'm here for the pizza and stuff like that. But then on the other hand, you have all the fans who are kind of like, no, this is going to be great. It's going to be super awesome. It's going to be awesome. We're going to see all the characters and stuff that we had played through the first two games. And it's going to be like this whole like crazy thing that just brings everything all together. It's going to be great. And then you have the other friend who's like, yeah, cool. So for a lot of fans out there here and there, understand that there are some people who've not been exposed to the first two games. Is it one of those things where I think that you should play the first two games before you actually watch this anime? Yes. Absolutely. I think in order to kind of get the like full scope of exactly what's going on, you probably should play the first two games before you actually watch this anime. More than likely, you actually are watching different anime if you're just happening upon this anime in the first place. But at the same time, if you haven't played the first two games, I would strongly recommend that you do so before you watch this one. Danganronpa 3 is an animated television series which is divided up into those two separate arcs, with another episode tagged along to it called the Hope arc, but it was directed by Daiki Fukuoka, and it was essentially released in about late 2016. The series itself was kind of debuted around the same time as the manga was released here and there, and it's one of those things too where, yeah, okay, you could watch the animated television series and get out of it what you need to get out of it, but again, like most manga fans will tell you, if you want more context or more like an actual picture as to what was really going on, you should probably read the manga. Probably take that into consideration for sure, but we're just going to be taking a look at just the animated television series in this episode. And again, like I mentioned beforehand, if you haven't played the first two games, just know that those two games kind of set up the entire universe, but they do leave little gaps here and there in between a lot of the story as to what they leave you with assumptions as to what happened. But now's the time in the animated series to show you what really happened behind the scenes. So let's get started with introducing our main cast of characters. Now, for those of you who have played the Danganronpa games, you know that there is a huge list of characters to actually get through. Am I going to be going through each and every single one of them? No, but we are going to be going through a lot of the key players here and there, and especially a lot of the ones that are introduced in this particular anime show that weren't introduced in a lot of the games in order to give you a full context about who the new peoples are as well. So again, in starting out with the Despair arc, which is the first arc that we actually see in this anime, you do see the entire cast of the second game of the 77th class actually making their debut, so you do see everybody from that class. However, there's a few key players that I do want you guys to kind of pay attention to, and that's Hajime Hinata, Chiaki Nanami, and also Nagito Kamaeda. Those three have pretty much the biggest impact out of anybody in the Despair arc side of things and whatnot, and especially when you take a look at a lot of their own stories here and there and how they kind of fill the gaps in between the second game and how everything like kind of ties together with the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. And then when we get into the next arc with the future arc here and there, of course you have cast members over here like Makoto Naegi and Kyoko Kirigiri and Byakuya Togami, and a bunch of the other surviving members here and there of the first game. But also, another one that I'd like you to pay attention to is Junko Enoshima. Junko Enoshima and Mukuro Ikosaba, her sister, essentially kind of like make this whole like attempt here and there to kind of take over the world and put it into a little bit of despair. This genius was made possible by this one entity called Hope's Peak Academy, which we're going to talk about a lot of these characters over here, and the reason why we want to spend more time with them is because a lot of those characters are being first introduced in this anime in particular. So again, as I mentioned beforehand, a lot of the people that I just mentioned over here are folks that you've already met here and there from the first two games, but a lot of the people that I'm actually going to be covering right now especially are the people that are the key players from Hope's Peak Academy side of things. And the first one on my list actually is Chisa Yukizome, who is the ultimate housekeeper from her previous classes here and there at Hope's Peak Academy, who has now become Class 77's ultimate homeroom teacher. Chisa over here is wonderful, like for real. This woman will do anything in her power to make sure that her class is okay, that they're constantly learning something, or even if it's just like somebody's having a down day of some kind, she would go out and talk to them one-on-one and make sure that they were not only just okay, but that they were actually actively engaging with their fellow students. She's kind of that cheery, bright, positive personality that you want to have as a friend here and there, and somebody that you always look up to as an example of what it means to be a good-natured person. She essentially, as the teacher, kind of really encourages a lot of her students in class 77 to embrace a lot of their ultimate abilities, but also gives them the advice here and there to not look down upon a lot of other people who don't have ultimate abilities themselves. This kind of benevolence is really infectious, especially when talking with a lot of the class members of class 77, and it instills a good nature among pretty much the entire class. The next character I'd like to talk about is Kyosuke Munakata. Now this guy is the Ultimate Student Council class president, and essentially he was Chisa's friend from way back when here and there when they were in the same class, but right now what he's currently responsible for is trying to set up different branches of Hope's Peak Academy abroad here and there in other countries in order to kind of spread a lot of the message of cultivating talents and kind of like working to see if they can make the leaders of tomorrow for the most part. He's very honor bound, like especially at first when he's kind of just up and coming and just trying to spread this whole message of making sure that they can actually set up different branches and whatnot. So he believes in the vision that the Hope's Peak Academy is trying to espouse, at least at first. But his faith is put to the test, especially with all the stuff that's going on with the tragedy and everything that kind of led up to it. And one of the next characters I'd like to talk about is Koichi Kizukura. Now this guy isn't exactly like ultimate talented, but he's more of a guy who scouts and recruits for a lot of the ultimate talented members here and there who get scouted by the Hope's Peak Academy and admitted into their program. For a little bit of context, pretty much anybody who's selected to be part of these classes here and there are essentially kind of guaranteed like a spot among leadership in businesses, governments, wherever here and there as far as like leadership of pretty much the rest of humanity, and they're kind of held up as almost idols for a lot of other people to aspire to. And this guy Kizukura over here is essentially responsible for going out and finding the ultimate talent in order to see what they can do about admitting them into the school. Although he's kind of a carefree personality when in comparison here and there to a lot of the other ones, when he does have to really get down to business when it counts, he actually does and maintains the same amount of honor as pretty much the rest of the cast. And the last of our cast members from Hope's Peak Academy faculty, for the most part, I'd like to introduce you to is Kazuo Tengen. Now, Kazuo is essentially the former director of Hope's Peak. He's not the current director, which is Jin Kiriyuri, who is Kyoko Kiriyuri's dad, but this guy was the former director of Hope's Peak Academy, and he was kind of also in charge of overseeing a lot of the vision for what Hope's Peak Academy should have, would have, could have been. Now again, Kazuo is working kind of behind the scenes here and there in order to ensure one particular member's vision, and that was the ultimate founder of Hope's Peak Academy, Izuru Kamakura. We find out that Kamakura's aim is essentially to cultivate ultimate talent inside like an academy or school, and to do a little bit of research into what exactly could inspire the creation of a being of ultimate hope. Now this does come into play here and there, especially when we get into the plot, but Kazuo Tengen over here was kind of in charge of kind of carrying on that vision and seeing it through to its realization. And with that being said, let's get into the plot of this story and see exactly what the hell happened at Hope's Peak Academy. So as the story goes, it's essentially divided into two major arcs here and there, with one kind of episode happening as kind of like a little side arc here and there, like towards the end of it, but essentially most of the story, 95% of it, is divided up into the Despair arc and the Future arc. The Despair arc really sets up exactly what happens here and there leading up to the fall of Hope's Peak Academy, and the Future arc kind of leads up to the events in the aftermath of what happens after all that's occurred. So if you're looking at these events here and there on a timeline, essentially you have the Despair arc, which happens first, and then you have the events of both the first and second games kind of in the middle section, and then you have the Future arc, which is what happens after the events of the second game. So keeping that split in mind, let's start by talking a little bit about the Despair arc and exactly what we can expect out of that one. So essentially, to start things off, the first episode of the Despair arc essentially has Chisa Yukizome going around town here and there, collecting her students who are going to be making up a lot of the class 77 members, and then collecting them and getting them ready for their first day of class. And again, as a fan here and there, we get to see a lot of the members of class 77. It's such a joy here and there to see them animated over here in this particular episode format. They have their own kind of like adventures and misadventures here and there throughout the first couple of episodes as we really just get introduced to the entire class. But then we also get to see a little bit of the other key players of Host Week Academy kind of making decisions here and there about setting up other branches of Host Week Academy here and there, as we get introduced to Munakata and a couple of other different peoples here and there, as we see exactly what has been going on leading up to these events. We also see a little bit of stirrings here and there from the general population, including a lot of peoples here and there who are kind of like looking down upon Host Week Academy, like why do a lot of these people who just get to be part of this ultimate course go on to live successful careers, and even the reserve course students. Why exactly is it that we have a reserve course here and there about these people who don't even have ultimate talents but want to yet get into Host Week Academy anyway to live successful careers anyway? There's a little bit of divide that's happening between a lot of the population, and it's driving a wedge here and there between a lot of these different classes. And because of the sensitivity of this nature here and there, of the divide between different peoples in society, you do see a lot of the faculty of Host Week Academy really espousing the whole idea about bringing about the ultimate hope here and there, which they are looking among the reserve corps students here and there for volunteers about trying to see what they could do about that one. And the way that they do it is they take a subject's body and essentially assimilate all of the ultimate talents into that individual. However, they don't exactly know whether or not that individual is going to retain exactly who they are and their essence after the procedure is done. And even the whole theme that's going on over here, you do have Hajime Hinata, who's lamenting the fact that he doesn't have an ultimate talent at all, and he's kind of falling for one of the students of the 77th class of Host Week Academy, Chiaki. He essentially, in order to kind of, just make sure that he is somebody in her eyes, decides to volunteer himself for the procedure, even after she spent some time with him here on a bench here and there when they're trying to kind of get to know each other and whatnot, saying that he doesn't have to have an ultimate talent in order to be special. But regardless, he still volunteers himself anyway, and essentially the school starts to do these procedures on him, and then things go horribly wrong. Now, of course, as Class 77 is essentially already put together, eventually the school's going to put together Class 78, and they do bring on a good class here and there too, of a lot of different really good and talented peoples, but there's one among them who has very, very evil intentions. Junko Enoshima is brought into the picture along with her sister Mukuro Ikusaba, and they start to wreak havoc almost immediately. So Junko essentially is like a super genius. I mean, she is the ultimate fashionista as part of her talent, to be sure, but beyond that, she has a very strategic and very analytical mind, and a sort of malevolence that has never ever been seen before in all of humanity. She sets up multiple different things that happen, including propaganda here and there from one of the ultimate animators. You also have different things involving like little secrets here and there from a lot of different faculty members that she kind of blows open wide open in front of everybody. But she does something that really guarantees her success, and that's that she gets to Hajime Hinata, who has essentially absorbed all of the ultimate talents, to become Izuru Kamakura. Kamakura, yes, queen. I finally understand exactly what that means, but oh my god, yeah, when I finally see it, yeah. That whole thing was crazy. Now, you would think that a guy who has absorbed all these talents and essentially is supposed to be like the hope of humanity here and there would actually be a hopeful person. When Junko gets to him, she explains to him, hey, guess what? You know what? I know that you probably could kill me right now if you wanted to, but guess what? Hope is boring. It's dull. There's nothing really that can come up about it. Despair, on the other hand, which is the opposite of hope, is where it's at, and the reason for it is because it causes chaos and keeps things very, very interesting. And Kamakura, who is talented in pretty much everything else, looks at this situation and says, she is right. Life is dull. I don't have any other reason to be talented in more of anything. I'm already good at everything. So, yeah, why not? He signs up for her plan even though he considers everything else to be boring, and eventually she takes over the school. And again, I won't spoil it for you too much, but she does stoke those divisions among humanity here and there and pits them all against each other, and eventually she gets to Class 77 in a very terrible fashion, I might add. But she turns them into ultimate despairs by getting them to fall in love with despair, which ends up being really, really tragic. And then you have the events of the first two games, which I won't cover in depth too much here and there, but the main gist of the story is that Junko Enoshima is found to be behind it all and essentially dies in the first game, and in the second game we found out that the ultimate despairs, which were created as part of Class 77, were captured but were rehabilitated as part of this program, but they were essentially revived by the future Foundation members, which included a lot of the members from the first game. And that's where we pick things up over here inside the future arc, which is kind of like the second half of the anime, with a whole lot of backlash here and there going on Makoto Naegi and Kyoko Kirigiri, and a whole bunch of other peoples here and there from Class 78, who essentially had revived and are now taking care of the Despairs class from the Class 77 folks. The future arc is where things continue to be even more crazy, because we saw the fall of Hope's Peak Academy from the Despair arc. We're seeing the aftermath of the first two games and the entire storyline in this arc. So we find out that the Future Foundation is made up of Hope's Peak Academy faculty members and a lot of the cast from the first game here and there, who are now working together to try to spread hope in a world that has basically fallen to despair. So essentially, from Munakatsu, the Ultimate Student Council class president from the beginning of the Despair arc, he comes up and says to Makoto and whatnot, guys, what are you doing? I mean, these people were Ultimate Despairs. They were causing death and destruction around the entire world. Why would you rehabilitate them or even think that they're even a cause anymore? We should execute these people. And of course you have Makoto's side, who's like, I'm full of hope and whatnot. We have to believe in these people that they could come back and eventually help us out. So you see that rift, that division among the Future Foundation members as to whether or not it was a good idea in the first place and whether or not it's a lost cause here and there and these people should be executed. And when you get a lot of those people that were put together inside like a council chamber and whatnot, essentially put, we find out that a new killing game has started in this particular instance. So Monokuma, who's essentially Junko Enoshima's avatar for the most part, shows up again over here around the Future Foundation's council, and then essentially imprisons all of them and forces them into another killing game, in which they have to kind of figure out exactly who the traitor is among them, because apparently the whole like Despair division, if you will, which is still wreaking havoc around the world, although it's still losing side in things, they do have a traitor among the Future Foundation who's been informing a lot of the Despairs around the world. And in this final killing game, it's up to all the members of the Future Foundation Council, if you will, to find out the traitor, whoever it is among them, to stop them from killing them as they go to sleep. So essentially the Future Foundation Council members are outfitted with these bracelets here and there that inject several different things in their bloodstream. One is a sleeping agent, which puts everybody except for the traitor to sleep, which leaves the traitor open to killing somebody. But it also injects a poison into their system if they violate certain rules. And again, these rules vary vastly between a lot of the different members here and there. It could be don't turn left, it could be don't punch somebody. It really just depends on whoever you are. But at the same time, their mission is to find out who the traitor is among them. This stokes a lot of distrust among the Future Foundation members, and essentially it blows open the entire doors about everybody's like different inhibitions about each other, all the divisions here and there. But essentially, it was supposed to sow the seeds of despair. But do they get their shit figured out? I don't know, we'll see. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it is a really cool and climactic ending for sure. But before I give you my concluding remarks, let's talk really quickly about the production quality and the soundtrack of this anime as we get into this one right before my conclusion. For an anime that came out in 2016 with especially as big of a fan base as it does have, I was actually surprised to find that it didn't look as good as I thought it was going to look like. And taking a step back for just a second here and there to kind of compare it to a lot of other animes that were released around the same time, 2016, I actually think that the art styles here and there in the anime, although they do pay homage especially to the first two games very, very well, I will give them that. Most of the anime I thought was pretty bland and boring for the most part. Except for a lot of the action sequences here and there and a lot of the different dramatic moments here and there too, the rest of the animations were fairly just okay, but then again, it didn't really blow my mind as a lot of other animes have in 2016. And even for the music, I mean, just objectively speaking, just taking a step back and taking a hat as an anime fan instead of a Danganronpa fan, the music was just okay in my opinion. It didn't really blow my mind for the most part. But the opening and ending sequences were pretty good for the most part. I did enjoy those ones, but one really stood out to me, and that was the opening of the Despair arc, and that one was called Kamiira Awase, and that one, in my opinion, actually encapsulates the entire mood of everything that you were about to see. And of course the animations in the opening sequence were absolutely beautiful. I love that one, and especially like just seeing a lot of my favorite characters come to life with this. That was something that I thoroughly enjoyed out of that opening. And now let's get to my conclusion for this anime. So I'm going to do something a little unconventional over here, guys. I'm going to give it a fan score, and then I'm going to give it a regular type of anime score. And I can say right now, if you are a fan of the show, that I would highly recommend that not only do you see this anime, but that you go out, you buy it, have it be a part of your collection, all the good stuff. because you guys are going to thoroughly enjoy this one, trust me. And again, as a fan, I would score this one a 4.5 out of 5, and it is just that good, especially if you're a fan, because it helps kind of give the context about this one, but it also does leave a little bit of gaps here and there for your creative imaginations for a lot of us theorists out there who want to kind of plug the holes ourselves here and there as to what happens even in between. However, if you're an anime fan in general who's not been exposed to any of the video games just yet, or this is the first time you're seeing any bit of the story at all, I would actually rate this one a 3.0 out of 5, recommending that you still see it, even though you probably won't know what's going on. As a standalone series, it's one of those things here and there too, where it's kind of like you have to have the context about what exactly Hope's Peak Academy is through the first 2 games, and a lot of its implications and what exactly its effects are, or have been on the students here and there. You want to have that context even before you begin watching this anime, because if you're just watching the anime by itself, you're not going to know exactly like what to expect or what to really even think about this one. And again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you're kind of the friend who came over to the fanboy's house saying, oh yeah, this is kind of cool, it's kind of fun, I guess. I'm just here for the pizza, man. But what do you guys think of the show? If you've already seen the show or played one of the first 2 games, or both of them, or seen all of this, leave a comment down in the comment section below and let's talk about it here and there, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about the subject. Also, be sure to leave a like and a subscription and turn on that bell for notifications for this video for all of your anime review and also JRPG needs. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to check out some of our other playthroughs of Danganronpa here and there. I've got one of 2, and we're currently playing through V3 right now if you'd like to check out those ones as well. And with that, I will see you soon in the next video. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.